sunken ships. This was just 2 weeks after the British burned the Capitol. The next morning, through the dawn's early light, this young lawyer, Francis Scott Key, saw the American flag still flying. Elated, he penned the Star-Spangled Banner, which states in its fourth verse, "May the heaven-rescued land praise the power that has made and preserved us a nation."
This has been an American Minute with Bill Federer. For a free transcript, call American Minute at 1-888-USA-WORD.
VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
We do thank you for joining us today. It's going to be a News Roundup Friday today on the broadcast, and a lot of different topics and stories to be representative of some of the things going on this week. Our thanks to Sandy for getting so many things prepared for us today. Good to have Molly on the phones here for us today, and our team here as well. We're so grateful for our staff working many behind the scenes to make this possible. Our network having its share-a-thon going on right now, and so grateful for the VCY America listeners who get behind this network in support as well. Well, we're going to begin today with a opinion piece that was on the Daily Caller and referring to the debate Tuesday night. I know we did a program on Wednesday pertaining to this, but what they write in their opinion piece is that the moderators were doing everything they could to help Harris in the debate. A recent piece on ABC's Lindsay Davis in the LA Times not only proves this to be fact, but she's bragging about their behind-the-scenes plan to ensure that Trump was not able to end Harris's campaign the same way that he did President Joe Biden's at the CNN debate in June. Saying, quote, "In an era in which misinformation spreads fast and furious, Davis's real-time fact-check cut through the proceedings like a sharp blade," the LA Times wrote. Davis, we see the decision to attempt to correct the candidates was in response to the June 27th CNN debate between Trump and President Biden, whose poor performance led to his exit from the race. The outlet added that in the weeks leading up to the debate, everyone involved at ABC played out various scenarios and table read-like sessions to ensure their ability to fact-check in real time to avoid a redo of Trump's debate against Biden. People were concerned that statements were allowed to be just hang there and not be disputed by the candidate Biden at the time or the moderators, Davis told the LA Times. Victor Davis, the fix was in before the debate even began. In true regime media fashion, their hubris pushed them to fact-check and Trump at every turn while leaving Harris to spread debunked falsehoods without even the slightest correction. Friends, more and more across this country, it is becoming well known that it was very biased against President Trump, that the fact-checking was only against him. And then from townhall.com, they say, though the debate is over, it's very interesting. They said they live fact-checked the former president, but not her. The microphones were not muted, and to the shock of no one, the live fact-checks were wrong, especially on crime and abortion. Yet for Ms. Davis, there's another issue. Lindsay Davis, who moderated the presidential debate, had a major conflict of interest, they write at townhall.com. She's a sorority sister of Kamala Harris and bragged about it on record years ago. Very interesting indeed. From WND.com, President Donald Trump has delivered what they're calling a devastating slam to Kamala Harris in the presidential race by rejecting yet another debate. He put out, when a prize fighter loses a fight, the first words out of his mouth are, "I want a rematch." Polls clearly show that I won on Tuesday night, and she immediately called for a second debate. Said President Trump. He continued on social media saying that she and then also referred to former President Biden have destroyed our country with millions of criminals and mentally deranged people pouring into the USA, totally unchecked and unvetted, and with inflation bankrupting our middle class. Everyone knows this, and all of the other problems caused by Kamala and Joe. It was discussed in great detail during the first debate with Joe and the second debate with and he referred to her as being Comrade Harris. Kamala should focus on what she should have done during the last almost 4-year period. There will be no third debate. And end a quote that coming from posting from President Donald Trump. FoxNews.com, the Trump campaign slammed reports that Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign told Arab American leaders in Detroit that if she's elected on November 5th, she would likely name left-wing Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison as the U.S. top cop. Keith Ellison would be a natural fit in Kamala Harris' administration. Both are radical liberals who support ending cash bail and releasing violent criminals into American neighborhoods. The good news for the American people is that it's never going to happen because President Trump is going to win on November 5th. That was a quote from the Trump campaign National Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt as she told Fox News Digital. Let's see, another news here. This from the Daily Caller. Former President Trump announced support for a Florida ballot initiative that would legalize marijuana, pitting him against the state's Republican governor who opposes the measure. The president is finding himself at odds with a number of conservative Christians on this one. Trump announced on Truth Social late Sunday that he would support Florida Amendment 3. That's a measure that would allow companies licensed by the state to produce medical marijuana to sell their drug for recreational use. Just hours earlier, however, Governor DeSantis of Florida warned about 200 people at a church in Tallahassee that the amendment would create a legal drug cartel in the state and lead to rampant public use of the substance, Politico reported. The campaign supporting the measure, which would alter Florida's constitution if passed, has raised over $80 million in cash, that being according to Politico. The Washington Examiner reporting that a Georgia judge dismissed 3 criminal charges on Thursday in the 2020 election interference case involving former President Trump. Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee dismissed 2 counts brought against Trump and additionally dropped 1 charge against some of his allies. The initial 41-count indictment accused the former president and several of his co-defendants of attempting to overturn the results of the 2020 election in Georgia. And this is initially listed on 13 counts. McAfee ruled that the state prosecutors lack the authority to pursue charges related to the alleged submission of false documents in federal court, but he declined an effort to dismiss the entire indictment. Western Journal reporting that North Carolina's Supreme Court ruled Monday that state election officials have to reprint presidential ballots and remove Robert F. Kennedy's name. Kennedy, who initially hoped to wage a third-party bid for the White House, has instead backed former President Trump. Kennedy has since launched a battle to have his name removed from states where he had secured ballot access so that voters who can't stomach voting for Kamala Harris will have him as an alternative, theoretically boosting Trump's chances. So the Supreme Court there of the state handing Trump and RFK Jr. What they're calling a crucial win in a ballot battle. From Newsmax.com, President Joe Biden donned a red Trump 2024 hat Wednesday during an event with Vice President Kamala Harris, and this was in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. At the Shanksville Fire Station, POTUS spoke out. That's at POTUS. That would be referring to the President of the United States, spoke about the country's bipartisan unity after 9/11 and said we needed to get back to that. White House spokesman Andrew Bates posted on X, as a gesture, he gave a hat to Trump supporter who said that in the same spirit, POTUS should put on his Trump cap, and he actually did briefly put it on. The Associated Press reporting state and local election officials from across the country on Wednesday warned that problems with the nation's mail delivery system threaten to disenfranchise voters in the upcoming presidential election, telling the head of the U.S. Postal Service that it has not fixed persistent deficiencies. What are they doing with all the money that they've been increasing stamps twice a year, folks? In an alarming letter, the official said that over the past year, including the just concluded primary season, mailed ballots that were postmarked on time were received by local official offices days after the deadline to be counted. The officials also said that the repeated outreach to the Postal Service to restore the issues had failed. The letter to the U.S. Postmaster General Louis DeJoy came from 2 groups that represent top election administrators in all 50 states. Friends, any effort that you have to vote in person should, take note of this warning that's coming from the Postal Service. And certainly, early voting taking place. And as conservatives in the past have said, no, vote just the one day, but everybody else is voting and early, and suggesting that people actually do go vote early in order to be sure that your ballot is counted, that it's there. If something comes up on Election Day that prevents you from going to the polls, you're able to have your ballot cast. But there's a concern about those mailing in ballots. And friends, I just give this friendly advice, and that would be if you are voting absentee, if you are required to because of perhaps your conditions that will take you away for a period of time or health does not allow you to get out, just be sure that you get your ballots in early and you not wait until near the deadline in order to mail them. That's just my personal opinion in light of this warning that's coming out with the Postal Service. Okay, let's go to FoxNews.com. The U.S. Secret Service will ramp up security on January 6, 2025 in an effort to ensure the safety and security of the upcoming Electoral College vote count at the Capitol. The Secret Service confirmed this security measure in an email to Fox News Digital. The agency released a statement Wednesday noting that January 6, 2025 had been designated a national special security event by the Secretary of Homeland Security. This designation allows for significant resources from the federal government as well as from state and local partners to be utilized in a comprehensive security plan. When an event is designated a national special security event, the U.S. Secret Service assumes its mandated role as the lead agency for the design and implementation of the operational security plan. Now, for some people, that's kind of frightening, knowing the lapses that have happened here in recent weeks. Let's see, Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser has requested the heightened security. The agency said that the 2025 presidential inauguration, which will take place on January 20th, had previously been designated a national special security event. The Daily Wire telling us the census data released Thursday showed Americans are less well off than they were 4 years ago. Across the board, average household income was down by $1,221, taking into account inflation. That's according to the annual community survey, whose 2023 numbers were released by the Census Bureau just yesterday. Also from PJ Media, last month economic conditions triggered the SOM rule, one of which the most historically reliable indicators of a recession. The market responded swiftly with a major sell-off, fueling fears of an approaching downturn. However, instead of raising alarms, experts in the media immediately sought to cast doubt on whether the rule's activation truly signaled a recession. But now the economy has triggered another notoriously accurate recession indicator, the inversion of the yield curve, which occurs when short-term bonds offer a higher yield than long-term bonds, is over for now after a more than 2-year long stretch, reports Business Insider. The 10-year U.S. Treasury yield was about 3.70% Friday afternoon, while the 2-year U.S. Treasury yield was 3.66%. And from Just the News, former President Trump, yesterday pledged to eliminate taxes on overtime wages if he is elected back to the White House. This is following up on his efforts also to eliminate taxes on tips and also on Social Security benefits. And let's see, from the Daily Caller, Vice President Harris's tax plan would effectively vaporize nearly 800,000 full-time equivalent jobs. That's according to studies published by the Tax Foundation on Tuesday. Harris's proposals, including hiking corporate taxes to be among the highest in the developed world, would lower employment by roughly 786,000 full-time equivalent jobs and reduce long-run gross domestic product and wages by 2% and 1.2% respectively, the Tax Foundation found. Meanwhile, Trump's proposals would include a 60% tariff on China, would lower employment by approximately 387,000 full-time equivalent jobs, lowering long-run GDP by 0.2%, and increase long-run wages by 0.6%. More news after the break. This is a News Roundup Friday here on VCY America, and the Crosstalk program will be back in 1 minute.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, popular creation speaker with the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, Have investigators found any evidence of life in outer space?
Not a bit, Chris. They've pointed their telescopes to the skies, hoping to pick up any signal that's non-random, like Morse code. Actually, they're setting their sights rather low. They think that just a few letters would indicate intelligent life. But at the same time, scientists look at the incredibly complex information-loaded DNA code with billions of letters all in a precise sequence and call it random. In spite of this incredible complexity, atheistic scientists refuse to believe that it's the evidence of intelligence. Yet they say that the simple hoped-for code from outer space would be the sign of intelligent life. How inconsistent. At least the creation model doesn't depend on claims such as this. Let's go back to Genesis and get it right.
For more on creation, visit our website at www.icr.org.
It's a News Roundup Day here on Crosstalk. We're so grateful that you've joined us here today and every day on the program, keeping you informed on critical issues. And we continue on with an article from the National Review. New York Police Department Commissioner Edward Caban announced his resignation Thursday. This is 8 days after authorities seized his phone as part of a federal investigation into possible corruption. The investigation reportedly involves the activities of his twin brother James, a former police officer who owns a nightclub security business. And investigators seized the phones of several New York City officials, including the two brothers, to determine whether James's business benefited from his ties to Edward and the NYPD. It's one of four federal investigations centering on high-ranking officials tied to Mayor Eric Adams, who himself is facing a probe into his campaign connections with the Turkish government. From townhall.com, the first bus sponsored by the Biden-Harris administration to CBP One app arrived at the U.S.-Mexico border this week, where illegal immigrants from Central and South American countries will be admitted into the United States. Unlike its new program, or rather under the new program, it's a secure emerging mobility corridor. Mexico's National Institute of Migration announced it had arrived just across the border from McAllen, Texas. The program was unveiled after a meeting between President Joe Biden and Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador. Illegal immigrants traveling to the U.S.-Mexico program get free transportation, meals, and security from the Mexico-Guatemala border to ports of entry to the U.S. There are 1,450 daily appointments available at several ports of entry across the border. This smartphone app allows illegal aliens to schedule an appointment in the U.S. to claim asylum and to be released into the country permanently. More than 500,000 undocumented aliens enter under this smartphone application every year. And that's how they say we've stemmed the tide of those illegally crossing the border. No, because they make an appointment. And when you have an appointment on the smartphone app, then it's no longer illegal. Figure that one out, folks. NewsNationNow.com reporting that the city of New York has given 150 migrant families up to $4,000 each to leave city shelters and move into permanent housing as part of a grant program using leftover city funds, leftover put in quotes. The program called ASLE Move-Out Assistance was launched in December with little public exposure and attention, modeled on a similar city grant program that provides up to $4,000 for residents of city shelters to help pay for moving costs, called Enhanced One-Shot Deals. While the one-time grants have been provided to asylum-seeking families and pregnant women who live at 62 Emergency Department of Homeless Services shelters and have secured their own permanent housing. That's said by city spokesperson Neha Sharma, as Neha told the outlet that very thing. The city has accommodated more than 210,000 migrants, mostly asylum seekers, they report, has spent more than $5 billion and an average of $372 per night for each household. From the Daily Signal and the run-up to the November election, Vice President Kamala Harris is attempting to rewrite history and absolve herself of her administration policy of facilitating a mass illegal migration into the U.S. through reckless releases of aliens caught at the border and bogus alien parole programs. In a new ad her campaign is running claims that Harris is a border hawk. Though in 2017, Harris said an undocumented immigrant is not a criminal, Her campaign staff recently told Fox News the vice president's position is the same as the administration's. Unauthorized border crossings are illegal. Well, that's doublespeak, folks, in my mind. In an August 29th interview on CNN, Dana Bash asked Harris about her change of mind. The vice president said, "I believe there should be consequence for entering the U.S. illegally because we have laws. But if you follow our app, then you can get in illegally on a legal basis." I mean, that's my words, of course. We don't know what consequences she had in mind, of course. From Just the News, Mike DeWine, the GOP governor of Ohio, sending law enforcement and about $2.5 million in health funding to assist the city of Springfield with the influx of temporary Haitian migrants. According to local news reports, 15,000 Haitians have arrived in the city of roughly 59,000 people since 2020. That's 25% of the population. DeWine called on the federal government to do more to support the Clark County Health Department in handling the influx. WND.com, Tim Boggs, business owner and resident of Columbus, told WND that there are so many migrants moving into the area that he's unable to hire people who can only speak English. He said, "I run a business managing cell phone stores, and at some of my stores, I can't hire English-only speaker because they won't be able to service our customers. At one popular store of mine, I have to have a Creole working as a Haitian working at all times because of all of the Haitians we have that shop there." Boggs indicated he's currently trying to help Cuban Christians who are being persecuted by the Cuban regime migrate to the U.S. legally. But one of our good friends down there who is a pastor was thrown into prison in 2023 after attending a public rally against the government. He's been put in prison a couple of times to my knowledge and is under constant watch by the government, even though all he did was attend this rally. The main reason is because they've begun cracking down on Christians. Furthermore, despite the applicants being college-educated, able to speak English fluently, and having a sponsor who will provide work and shelter, Boggs noted immigration officials have yet to respond to the application in almost 2 years. You haven't figured it out. You need to come in illegally in order to get in. DailyWire.com, the father of an 11-year-old boy who was killed by a Haitian immigrant in Springfield, said during a city commission meeting on Tuesday that he wishes his son was instead killed by an old white man. Aiden Clark, killed in August 23 when a Haitian immigrant crossed over the center dividing line, crashed into a full school bus. The 11-year-old was ejected from the bus, flipped over, then landed on him. More than 20 children were taken to the hospital. Joseph is now facing 9 years behind bars after being convicted. He said, I wish that my son Aiden Clark was killed by a 60-year-old white man, the boy's father, Nathan Clark, said. I bet you never thought anyone would say something so blunt, but if that guy killed my 11-year-old son, the incessant group of hate-spewing people would leave us alone. From townhall.com, the Biden administration, Department of Justice, arrested an illegal immigrant from Guatemala for impersonating Americans and voting in federal elections. I thought that didn't happen. 42-year-old Angelica Francisco, taken into custody after it was revealed she had been illegally voting in both the 2016 and 2020 presidential elections. Charged with false claims of citizenship in connection with voting, false statements in application for United States passport, use of a U.S. passport obtained by false statements, and aggravated identity theft. Friends, again, I thought that just doesn't happen. That is rumor and false speech and misinformation to make such an implication. Let's see. Pamela Geller reports illegal criminal alien led into the U.S. by Kamala Harris and Joe Biden is bragging that the shelters are full of gang members like him and that in 2 years, the United States will be done for. You can read that at PamelaGeller.com. Also, the Daily Signal telling us one of the most fiercely contested battlegrounds in this fall's presidential race won't remove more than 4 million ineligible names from its voter rolls. I'm talking about the state of Wisconsin. Wisconsin's population, little less than 6 million, with 3.5 million active voters. Senator Ron Johnson told the Daily Signal in a written statement, so why do election officials refuse to clean up Wisconsin's voter rolls and instead allow up to 4.1 million inactive voters to remain with the potential for fraudulently using those names? Although Johnson and some other lawmakers contend that unpruned voter rolls create election security holes, the Wisconsin Elections Commission contends that it ensures proper record keeping and prevents fraud. Friends, the message they're saying is just trust us. Just trust us in all of this. Voters listed as inactive aren't eligible to vote in Wisconsin. Residents who haven't voted for 4 years and failed to respond to repeated notices from election officials are moved to the inactive list, but Wisconsin keeps the names on the voter rolls in contrast to many other states that delete ineligible names. Lawmakers contend that keeping the ineligible names on the rolls creates vulnerabilities. Let's see, from the Human Rights Campaign, we find that Sarah McBride, one step closer to becoming the first trans member of Congress, made history in Delaware when the state senator, Sarah McBride, secured the Democratic nomination, the race to represent the state's at-large congressional seat. McBride is a former HRC National Press Secretary, will now likely be the first openly transgender member of Congress in United States history. From Yahoo.com, reversing course on its previous decision, Oshkosh, Wisconsin. The Oshkosh Area Board of Education adopted the latest Title IX regulations for all but 5 of its schools, meeting Wednesday at the Alberta Kimball Auditorium. The board voted 5-2 to approve the new policies that redefine discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity just 2 months after opting not to adopt them in a 3-3 vote. So what led me to change my vote is that I feel we were spending a lot of time talking about this issue, and I believe it would not be an issue solved by school boards, said Board President Beth Wyman. It will be an issue figured out by higher courts, and until that time, we need to get back to educating. Free up the administrators' time and our teachers' time and work toward educating our students. So effective August 1, the new Title IX amendments broaden the scope of sexual harassment and assault complaints while prohibiting schools from discriminating against students' use of facilities like bathrooms and locker rooms based on gender identity. Friends, you don't know what problems you're going to be headed into here during these upcoming school years. The College Fix is reporting that the Pacific School of Religion hosting a series of workshops this fall that make the case Christian voters have a duty to support the LGBTQ community. It is the Queering the 2024 Vote workshop, a project of the Protestant Seminary Center for LGBTQ and Gender Studies in Religion, according to the website. What does a school that has a religious background really having a Queering the 2024 Vote workshop? Okay, let's hit another issue here. LifeNews.com. In 2023, 101 individuals in New Jersey sadly took lethal drugs prescribed by a physician to end their lives through the state's assisted suicide law, according to a 2023 state report. This translates to a 10% increase from the previous year's report, which revealed a total of 91 deaths. According to the 2023 report, patients were between 37 and 100 years of age, with 19 individuals ranging in age from 35 to 64. 57% were female, 43% male, 95% were white, 80% were 65 and older. But this is a report that 101 individuals in New Jersey took their life through so-called legal, these are lethal drugs prescribed by a physician. They also said the total number of individuals who died since the New Jersey assisted suicide went into effect in 2019 is now up to 287. West Virginia, this from LifeNews.com. The ballot initiative in West Virginia, Amendment 1, has recently been added to the state's November ballot with the intention of providing, quote, protection against medically assisted suicide. Ultimately, the amendment just places what's already illegal in West Virginia into the state constitution for more security going forward, said Pat McKeon, a West Virginia state delegate. If this amendment is passed, West Virginia would become the first state to amend their constitution to prohibit assisted suicide. We're going to take a quick break here in Crosstalk. I have a few more stories I want to bring to your attention. A little bit later, we'll open up phone lines to give you opportunity to weigh in on these or other current event stories. And we'll be back in 1 minute. This is Crosstalk on VCY.
Crosstalk as we know it began airing in 1987.
Good afternoon to you, Vic Eliason here. We are going to be talking today with...
It comes your way from the VCY America network out of Milwaukee. Did you ever wonder what the letters VCY stand for? Ever pondered what's behind the ministry that presents Crosstalk every day? We're pleased to share with you a free copy of the magazine formatted book, God's Continuing Miracle, The VCY Story. This book of over 200 pages presents nearly 500 photographs, interviews, historic newspaper articles, and writings about the VCY America ministry, now over 60 years old. The magazine will also inform you about VCY rallies, the Birthday Club ministry, the VCY bookstore, and so much more. It is a testimony to God's faithfulness. To receive a free copy of God's Continuing Miracle, The VCY Story, call 1-800-729-9829.
You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America, a Friday News Roundup here today. Just a selection of stories that are taking place, current news issues, some of these issues neglected by other media, but certainly bringing them to your attention today. From lifenews.com, 10 states officially have a proposed constitutional amendment regarding abortion on the ballot coming up here in November. That date is coming so very quickly. In varying degrees, many of these amendment proposals would codify the right to abortion, the right to kill unborn babies across these states where any previous state laws protecting unborn life and many regulations protecting women would be stripped away. The states that have the abortion issue on this year's ballots are Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Maryland, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, New York, and South Dakota. From LC.org, that's Liberty Counsel, after getting exposed, the pro-abortion group behind Florida's deceptive and extreme Amendment 4 has now removed a link from its website that directed minors on how to get an abortion without having to tell their parents. This was apparently the result of the Vote No on 4 campaign calling out a group in a September 4th news release. Florida law requires parental consent before a minor can get an abortion, which can only occur before 6 weeks of pregnancy under the state's Heartbeat Protection Act. Floridians Protecting Freedom Incorporated had included on its information and resources page a link to another pro-abortion group explaining how minors could get a judicial bypass for an abortion without parental consent. LifeSiteNews.com reporting the Philadelphia City Council announced last week that it is allocating $500,000. That's $500,000 to Planned Parenthood's southeastern Pennsylvania chapter, making it, the first time that the city is giving taxpayer dollars directly to the abortion giant. Planned Parenthood leaders said the city funding would be used to help more people obtain abortions, especially those who are low income, according to Philly Voice. Isn't that following Margaret Sanger? Following just her wishes exactly? According to Philly Voice, the city's new budget includes a line item of $250,000 for so-called abortion liberation funding to help low-income women access health care. Let's talk about what that really is, friends. It's accessing the ability to murder their unborn child. Philadelphia giving $500,000 to Planned Parenthood, $250,000 for abortion liberation. From the Associated Press, a state judge struck down North Dakota's abortion ban Thursday, declaring that broad guarantees of personal liberty in the Constitution of his conservative, Republican-dominated state create a fundamental right to abortion before a fetus is viable. The state's GOP Attorney General promised to appeal the decision, which would take effect within a few weeks. North Dakota no longer has any abortion clinics. From LifeSiteNews.com, a judge has ruled in favor of Planned Parenthood, which filed a 2019 lawsuit challenging an Alaska state law that specifically stating that only licensed physicians are permitted to commit abortions. In 2019, Planned Parenthood giant Northwest, Hawaii, Alaska, Indiana, Kentucky filed a lawsuit arguing that non-physician healthcare providers like nurse practitioners and PA should be allowed to commit abortions. A temporary order was put in place allowing this in 2021, and under the ruling, non-physicians can now commit chemical abortions as well as surgical aspiration abortions. The Epoch Times reporting the House has passed a bill to block consumer tax credits for electric vehicles with batteries that involve Chinese entities in the supply chain. Legislation is the last of the Republican-led China Week that started on September 9th. During this, the House passed 28 China-related bills focused on addressing the threat to the U.S. posed by the Chinese Communist Party in both technology and also in influence. The End Chinese Dominance of Electric Vehicles in America Act passed on September 12th by a 217 to 192 vote. 7 Democrats joined Republicans in voting for the legislation. Fox News is reporting that sobering data from the National Center for Education Statistics indicates nearly one-third of U.S. public school children are behind grade level, with the data pointing out to even more devastating numbers for students in select regions. This was responses to the June 2024 School Pulse panel that asked about grade proficiency in subjects like English, social studies, math, science, computer science, and foreign languages. Responses indicated an average of 32% of students nationwide were behind grade level as of the end of the 23-24 school year, compared to 33% in June of 2022. The Jewish Insider is reporting that every Jewish Democrat in the House signed onto a joint statement issued Monday night condemning Tucker Carlson for amplifying the views of a Holocaust denier. Lawmakers said that Cooper's revisionist and morally repugnant retelling of history presented in the Carlson interview as an insult to the 6 million Jews who were methodically murdered at the hands of the Nazi regime, and is especially dangerous now as anti-Semitism is on the rise globally. The Times of Israel reporting an Israeli reservist soldier wounded in a Hezbollah anti-tank guided missile attack from Lebanon on Wednesday. It came as a barrage of 100 rockets from Lebanon pounded areas in the north of the country. Meanwhile, more than 60 rockets launched from Lebanon at northern Israel in the space of around an hour Wednesday afternoon. Then in the early evening, another 40 were fired. The IDF said it has responded with artillery fire at a Hezbollah observation post and other targets in southern Lebanon. The Free Beacon reporting Israeli forces killed 3 high-ranking Hamas commanders who were involved in the October 7th terrorist attack in a targeted strike, Israeli Defense Forces confirmed early Tuesday morning. These were terrorists that were directly involved in the execution of the October 7th massacre and have been recently operating to carry out terror activities against the IDF and the State of Israel, the IDF wrote in a statement on Tuesday. And also, the Israeli Defense Forces have defeated Hamas' Rafah Brigade. The military declared on Thursday after 4 months of targeted raids in the area of the Gaza Strip's southernmost city near the border with Egypt, reports JNS.org. Since the start of the Rafah operation May 6, troops have killed more than 2,000 Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorists and destroyed some 8 miles of underground smuggling and attack routes, according to Israeli Army statement on Thursday evening. I've got a few more stories here on Israel, but I'd like to open our phone lines here today. If you'd like to comment on these or other current event stories, our phone number here at Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. Certainly your comments pertaining to the debate earlier this week, the election, where things stand there, the matter that being on the ballots in a number of states, 10 states dealing with abortion, many issues taking place across this nation. Again, our number, 800-733-9829, our number here today for Crosstalk. FoxNews.com, the Israeli Defense Forces confirmed on Tuesday that a 26-year-old activist from Seattle last Friday during a demonstration against Israeli settlements, this would be Isur Ezgi, last Friday during the demonstration, and this happened in Judea, Samaria. Inquiry found it was highly unlikely this a Turkish American that was killed. Inquiry found that it is highly likely that she was hit indirectly and unintentionally by the IDF fire, which was not aimed at her, but aimed at the key instigator of the riot. Took place during a violent riot in which dozens of Palestinian suspects burned tires and hurled rocks towards security forces, the IDF added. Following the incident, investigation was launched by the Military Police Criminal Investigation Division. And also, the Jihad Watch reporting that Hamas's fourth demand is that Israel exchange 50 terrorists for every female IDF soldier and 30 for every civilian in the first stage of, a the prisoner swap, then 500 terrorists for every male soldier in the second. Of the 64 hostages still believed to be alive, about 40 believed to have been killed. About 30 are thought to be male soldiers, 10 are believed to be female soldiers, 24 thought to be civilians. If Israel were to accept Hamas's terms, it would mean freeing a total of 15,000 plus 500 plus 720, or a total of 16,220 prisoners, thousands of them terrorists and thousands of others deemed security risk. The international media has still not published these Hamas demands, for if they did so, it would be instantly clear that not Prime Minister Netanyahu, but Hamas is the one holding up a deal. How can you do that, friends? How can you release 16,200 prisoners? Many of them are terrorists, thousands of them deemed to be security risk. Our number here to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. Let's begin with Greg in Los Alamos, New Mexico. You're on the air, Greg.
Hi. Bear with me here, because I really am trying to think of a way to say this in all love and kindness for you as a brother. But I'm thinking this weekend it would be good for you to reread, and reread the New Testament and listen to the pastors that are on VCY America, because like your comment about the lady that got arrested twice for illegally voting in the last two presidential elections, and you're saying, oh, they say this never happened, so it's never happened. Nobody ever said it never happens. What they've said is that it doesn't happen in any kind of numbers. And Jesus said, Satan was the father of all lies. And whether it's a white lie or a half-truth, it's still a lie.
Greg,
so
Greg,
some soul searching.
Greg, there are many. You will hear this often. This doesn't happen. Illegals are not able to vote. We'll hear this happen in debates where politicians will say, no, illegals are prohibited from voting. It doesn't happen. They're prohibited. Laws stop this from happening. So that's the rhetoric that I'm quoting there. Okay, so yeah, I understand there are also politicians who said, no, it rarely happens. It doesn't affect a vote in that regard. But keep in mind, there are many who will advocate, and it happens in debates all the time, that illegal aliens cannot vote. It does not happen in this country.
Well, you need to call out those specific people or make a reference to, I hear politicians saying all the time that this never happens, when in fact it does. Now, whether it happens in great quantity or not, something along those lines, because what people hear out here in Radio Land compared to what might actually be going on in your thought process when you're saying this can be two different things. You know what I'm saying?
Got you, Greg. I got your point here, but there are many who say it just does not happen. I probably could find out many such instances. Don't have time to go through and do all the research on that, but that happens often in the debates. But thank you so much for your kind words. Daryl in Phoenix, Arizona, you're on the air.
Yeah, I want to touch on this abortion. It's been going on for years, and I think that could this be part of setting up where God hardens in people's hearts to where, judgment will come in the form of a rapture, and Revelations 8 would take place in judging America in the Western Hemisphere, that this is all going to just play itself out where only a remnant is saved?
I know there's got a thought process going in 100 different directions here, it appears, Daryl, but there is judgment that is going to come, and we don't know that the rapture is going to precede God's wrath upon our nation. Ultimately, the Great Tribulation, yes, but indeed there is God has held countries. His beloved Israel was judged, brought in enemy nations to judge them for their violation against His word and against His principles. And God very well may be measuring out judgment across America. Many will insist that God is judging America right now with what we're experiencing. Thank you for the comments. We'll take more calls after the break. You're listening to Crosstalk.
For the Worldview Report, I'm Brandon House. Our website is worldviewtube.com. Recently, Tucker Carlson had on a historian that he praised, and this historian, Cooper is his last name, basically said that Hitler didn't mean to do the Holocaust. It was just poor planning. Well, that is absolutely 100% false, and it fits into the category of being a Holocaust denier. Edwin Black wrote the premier book on this. It's called IBM and the Holocaust. It's about the size of a phone book, and it details exactly how IBM's punch cards were used to track down the Jews, to know everything about them, not only their history, their heritage, being Jewish, but their occupation. And then they cross-referenced those to their bank accounts. Now the United Nations is holding a global conference to do the same thing, give all of us digital ID that's mandatory under their 17 goals of the 2030 agenda. History seems to be repeating itself along with the rise in active euthanasia.
Giving you opportunity to weigh in on the current issues of our day. Our program here today, a roundup program, a news roundup, our number 800-733-9829. We're going to continue our callers. This one from Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin. Maxine, you're on the air.
Yes, I have 2 points. First of all, I'm from a community of about 7,000, and our Trump signs in people's yards, there's like 10 times as many Trump signs as there are for the Democrats. And then second, our community has had their own personal experience with an illegal alien from Venezuela. He had a record of sexual and assaults and suffocation and strangulation in Madison, Wisconsin, as well as in Minnesota. He came to Prairie du Chien and he attacked two women, a mother and her underage daughter. So it makes it very real when these illegal aliens come to your own community.
Thank you, Maxine, for your call. We've got John in Lubbock, Texas. John, you're on the air.
Hey, Jim. Thank you for taking my call. I'm responding to the gentleman who called about your thought process of the illegal alien voting. I mean, I appreciate VCY and what they put out and the information that we'll never hear anywhere else. But I'm deeply disappointed by his comments because the one particular woman that you brought up during your initial
the story here. Mm-hmm.
Yes, that you brought up initially. I mean, that's only one of who knows how many.
Right.
I mean, this administration has been so cloak and dagger since the very beginning, and we don't even know the true numbers of anything that they put out. I mean, everything about them is false. Everything about them is from a reprobate perspective. And this man, who I would think was a Christian, he was a huge disappointment just simply based on the comments that he made, because I have to wonder, too, how many American Christians have been turned over to that reprobate mind also because of their trying to keep one foot in the world and one foot in following Christ.
Yeah.
And that's just my thoughts.
Okay. Thank you for your call. Appreciate it. We've got, let's go to Karen in Pennsylvania. Karen, you're on the air.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
I know you encourage people to vote, but I just want to add that I really think a no vote is a no vote for the candidate that we want. And I know some Christians think they can just pray about it and let God handle it, but I think it's our responsibility to vote. And I know some prayer meetings won't even bring it up to pray for, and I don't get that. I just think that's wrong. But anyway, I just encourage people to get out and vote.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Thank you for the call. I agree with you. I really believe that it's a stewardship aspect. We have been given as citizens the ability to vote, and we don't want to squander that stewardship of that vote. And And certainly there are many, many critical issues on the ballot. Candidates, we are electing 1/3 of the U.S. Senate. Every member of the House of Representatives up for election. We see some states voting on governors. We've got 10 states voting on abortion-related issues. A number are voting on attorney generals. And then there are a number of state houses up for election as well. The state assembly and House seats or state Senate seats. Very, very critical issues on this ballot, and we don't want to squander that stewardship we have of our vote.
No, it's too important.
Thank you.
To not vote, I don't get how you could do that, and just think you can pray about it.
Thank
you.
You
need to get out and vote. It, like you said, it's critical, but thank you.
Thank you for the call. We've got Rich in Burlington, Wisconsin. You're on the air.
Hi. First of all, thank you so much, Jim, for the show you do every day and for all the work of VCY. I really appreciate it. I just have a strategy prediction. Hunter Biden has now pleaded guilty. He is going to be found guilty, probably sentenced, and then before the election, his father is going to pardon him because no one could do anything about it. And then Kamala Harris is going to come out and use this as a way of separating herself from Joe Biden and condemn the pardon and use that as a way to make herself look tough on crime. It's just a prediction.
Okay. Thank you for your thoughts here today. Appreciate it. And to the individual who had called in regard to this, I just called up. You can find stories so quickly. This is from PBS. Okay, PBS. Speakers at the Republican convention have repeated falsehoods that Democrats are rigging the election and that non-citizens will vote in November. That claim is just one of many conspiracy theories about the security of Americans' election system that are being spread in the lead up to the November White House. Correspondent Laura Barron Lopez reports. That's PBS, folks. Okay? So to the individual who called in today, yes, it is out there. They were saying it doesn't happen. It's a conspiracy theory. Let's go back to the lines here. We have Darla in New London.
Yes, it is out
Darla
there.
in New London.
It doesn't happen.
Let's go to Alice then in Arkansas. Alice, you're on the air.
Thank you for taking my call. This is the return into hell. And all the nations that forget God. When people do not value life, they have forgotten God. They have forgotten, and that's why we have abortions. That's why we have euthanasia. It's terrible. God, the great giver of life. I want to give two examples. My mother, in July of 1961, after having had serious surgery, found it had cancer, was given 3 days to live. What if they'd set her aside and did not care for her? Do you know prayer went up for her and she died in 1975? My own son who died of cancer in 2022, he called in the night. He was in such pain, and we prayed and God took the pain away. Yes, he suffered, but the Bible says the suffering of this life cannot be compared to the glory which shall be revealed in us hereafter. Of course, Christians can suffer, but we have God who has said, my grace is sufficient for thee. There's no reason for anybody to take their life.
Thank you. Alice, we're out of time. Our closing music is playing here today. I can tell you this, friends, the Scripture says, the effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. Friends, don't squander that which God has given to us, and spend time in meaningful prayer, and that includes repentance. Our time is gone. Thanks for joining us today. The Lord's Day is coming. May you be in a Bible-believing, Bible-teaching local church. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Tape Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.